ultimately, when we refactor, the opacity of undocumented requirements, they are opaque to us. And we can look at the code to try to understand those requirements. But if we don't actually have the enumeration of the requirements, the code is cryptic and we don't know why the code was written that way.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's friendly, happy episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take? I am your host or co-host, Scott Porad, and my trusty host and or co-host is...
Brad Hefta-Gaub.
And this week, we have got an interesting topic. Well, we always have interesting topics to us because we're nerds about this stuff.
That's true.
But the topic that has come up, Brad said something to me recently, and I didn't quite know what he meant. And I said, Brad, I want to talk about that on the pod. He said, and I might be paraphrasing you wrong, so I'm just going to say the sentence, then you just run with it. Scott, you have to acknowledge product debt. Product debt is real. And I was like, we got to talk about that, Brad. What
Yeah.
is product debt?
Cool. Well, I think of product debt as it's the type of thing that it really informs technical debt, and it's part of kind of the debt that the an ongoing enterprise that's been around for a while, that's got a piece of their business that's built and it's doing something. There's this type of debt that you have all of these known or unknown or long since forgotten features and requirements that exist in your product that also slow you down in maintaining and innovating. So I think of technical debt as, you know, the code itself is written in such a way that it is hard to maintain. But that's different from product debt, where you may have features. Like a really good example of this is you might have features that are contrary or contradictory to each other, like two features that basically are at odds with each other. And they exist in your product and they're in there, and you've built around those features. You've kind of added all the different special cases. And it's not that the code is necessarily complex, although the code can often be complex to deal with this, but it's the very nature of the existence of the feature or the features that makes the debt, not the code, but the features. And that's what I mean by product debt.
It's like the cost. It's not quite, what I'm going to say is not quite debt, but it's the cost of ownership, right? It's almost like...
Yeah, and we had that great early episode where we talked to John Helm about, like, is it debt or is it calls of,
Yeah,
and stuff like. And so, like, I don't necessarily want to get into the big debate about whether it's debt or cost of ownership, and whether the word's the right word. But
yeah.
this
The
is, I think,
conceptually.
yeah, conceptually, I think we're all used to the idea of tech debt, and we generally think of that as, kind of the existing code that we have that makes new code hard to add,
Hmm.
or uh, bugs in the existing code hard to fix. Those are the things that we talk as technical debt. And I just think it's important for us to be realistic about the fact that sometimes it's actually the product requirements that the customers or the business have, the expectations around those product requirements, that is actually the source of this drag or this debt or this, inertia that gets in our way when we try to optimize, improve, innovate, whatever.
Yeah, like let me give you an example. Um, we have a partner, TaskRabbit. I work at a company called TaskRabbit, but we have a partner that's a special partner, and we have made a custom landing page and workflow for them.
Yep.
And so if we want to update something about our booking experience on TaskRabbit, we have to update it in two places.
Yep.
And eliminating that second flow is not possible. Well, it's technically possible, but from a business product perspective, it's not possible because we have an arrangement with this partner to, as part of doing business with them, we have to offer them something tailored for them.
That is a great example of product debt. And product debt like that can also come along with, it can kind of drag in technical debt, right? So for example, in this particular case, you're like, um, yeah, the way we implemented it is we have two slightly different onboarding flows, one for the product ask and one for the kind of the normal front door.
Mhm.
And the way we manage that is we have two different flows that we have to keep updating whenever we make changes, right? And so
Right.
that's a piece of product debt
Mhm.
that also kind of resulted in technical debt.
Well, okay, well, let's explore that for a second. If it is, let's just imagine that both of these flows have a date picker on them.
Hmm.
And if they share a component for the date picker, then, well, let's phrase it the other way around. If they each have their own date picker components, now we've sort of got some tech debt. If they got one date picker between the two, then you want to update the date picker because of whatever reason, you get it in both places. So
Yeah, and that's a great example where a technical choice to implement this piece of product requirement could be done in a less technical debt way or a more technical debt way. But regardless of the implementation, you still have this product debt where you have to always think about those two front doors.
yeah, that's right. And then there's another piece of this, right? Sometimes what we say is, okay, we've already got a landing page and we got this one special customer. They're writing us big checks and they want a custom landing page. So sometimes we say, okay, we're going to make them a custom landing page and we have product debt. And sometimes we say, okay, we're going to make our one landing page kind of do double duty, right? Somehow the
Add some templatization or like a there's like a config file that makes it look slightly different when it comes in through this other domain or something like that.
something like that,
Yeah.
which maybe that's a technique that maybe you still have your product debt because you still have both versions of it. You've maybe minimized some of your tech debt because it makes it easier to share
Hmm.
between them,
Hmm.
but you've introduced something new,
Hmm.
which is complexity.
Yep.
Now I've got these flow, which maybe it has if-else statements in it, right? Or it has the configuration file you mentioned, which has to be managed, and you got to have a configuration file system kind of whole situation.
Yeah,
And
and yeah, and I think this is a good example where it's like, where's the root of the challenge? Where did the challenge come? Where did the complexity come from? Did it come from engineering decisions that were orthogonal to product requirements, or did the challenge first get introduced at the moment of the product requirements? Right, and this dual landing page is a great example where um, if there hadn't been, let's do a slightly different variation of this. Let's just say, oh, we're going to have a landing page, and product has not come and said, hey, you've got to have two landing pages. We've got VIP customers; they're going to want customized landing pages, and everyone else is going to get the standard one. Like nobody in product ever asked for that feature.
mhm,
But the engineering team was like, oh, I can imagine a day when they might ask us to have special VIP landing pages. So when I first do my design statement, I'm describing it in these with this configuration template, and you built out this configuration template, but you only ever have one template, right? And that, in my judgment, would be a great example of pure tech debt. You created complexity for a feature you were not asked to build, and it makes it every time you go in there, instead of just simply changing the HTML to have a new button that says sign in instead of log in, you got to go into this configuration system and double check that it's not in the JSON for the config file and it's not, whatever, right? Tech debt, not
JSON.
product debt.
No, no, no. This config file is going to be in Lisp.
Yeah, the config file is in this. I love it.
So I want to go back to the previous example though, where as engineers, we do have requirement for two different pages. We put them in one with the configuration, so we create complexity. I don't consider that complexity tech debt.
Right. That
But it
that
is
isn't
so not all complexity is tech debt, is what I
true.
would say.
Right.
I would say a lot
If
of
it's
tech debt
serving a
is excess
purpose,
complexity.
yeah. But if it's again, and that's why I go, this is a distinction between tech debt and product debt. That
Okay, so
complexity was
yeah,
required by product debt.
yeah. Okay, so let me expand this a little bit. This originally came up because we were having a conversation about the proverbial problem, a system that has a lot of debt in it, whether it's product or tech, it just has a lot of debt in it. And the proverbial, do we rewrite it from scratch or do we refactor it? Right?
Modernize it somehow.
Modernize it. Yeah, modernize it somehow. And you had made this comment. This is when you made, in that conversation, is when you made the, well, product debt is real comment. And so, why in that conversation, how does it relate to that conversation?
Ah, okay. Because okay, great. I'm so glad you asked this. So one of the things that I consistently see in I've seen this over and over and over again in my career, is when the team starts to do the modernization effort,
Mhm,
um, and maybe they're going to rewrite it from scratch. Maybe they're going to like take it piece by piece and just kind of like componentize it, whatever it is. But this is going to happen with this modernization effort, right? Inevitably, there are requirements. I'll call them features. There's features
mhm,
that imply requirements that nobody remembers and aren't written down anywhere accessible and are effectively, they're required. Like if you fail to do them correctly in your modernization effort, someone is going to notice them.
mhm,
But nobody in the modernization project, or even any of the immediate stakeholders of the modernization project, remember that requirement and remember to say, hey, while you're doing the modernization, make sure you don't forget about buried old feature XYZ that no one remembers because we wrote it 5 years ago, but turns out is being used on the regular by real customers, but everyone has forgotten about it.
mhm.
That's a category of product debt.
Interesting.
And in my experience, it is the number one worst landmine that is sitting there waiting for you to accidentally step on it when you do your modernization effort.
Well, that's interesting. To me, that landmine is more of a rewrite landmine than a modernization landmine. Because the rewrite landmine is, we'll just go back to the landing page example. Hey, I've got these landing pages, they're riddled with debt, product debt or tech debt, whatever.
They're in a we're using what is it we're using, like PHP
It doesn't matter. They're just scrambled. And they're bankrupt, right? Or their debt is so high that they're consuming all their income, whatever, it doesn't matter. Uh so you go to rewrite it
and no one
and you
remembers
got
the VIP landing page.
right because you just don't even know. Or more to the case, more what I would say is there are so many requirements in there that it's actually just, I don't want to say impossible, it's approaching impossible, but it's closer to impractical to capture them all so that you can put them in the spec for the new thing you're writing.
Yep.
Like, oh, they're just too small. Like the VIP thing, that could be pretty big, but it could just be like one
Yeah,
little
totally.
wrinkle that's in
Yeah.
there, right? And it might not be a special case. It might be like, um, well, an example that came up today and something I was doing was just like we were talking about. Well, it's hard to come up with it's hard to explain the example without going into a huge story, so I'm going to skip it. But to me, those landmines are more on the rewrite side because you just forget about them. Versus the refactor side, it's like it's a different kind of landmine. That landmine is like, well, this is here, but does anybody know why it's here? And then you get into the Chesterson's fence problem. You know Chesterson's fence?
No.
If you come across a fence and you don't think you need to have that fence there, before you take down that fence, find out why somebody put it up because they put it up for a reason.
Yeah.
And so you run into the Chesterson's fence problem, which is very expensive in terms of time to kind of run around your company trying to say, does anybody know why this VIP thing is here?
Right.
And nobody knows, nobody knows, nobody knows. And maybe some engineers go and look at some logs and nobody can figure it out. And then you finally delete it. And Well, either you re-implement it and you didn't need it, so it was cost, or you delete it and you broke something that was important, and
Yeah.
somebody's like, "Whoa, our VIP thing stopped working yesterday." So, but at least you know about it.
Yeah, but this is where I'm saying this is where I'll give you. So you started to ask the question, "Hey, Brad, is this like unknown feature product debt thing that you?" Okay, you're basically like, "Yeah, Brad, I agree with you. There's these features that have long since been forgotten about, and those are sitting around waiting as landmines." So I hear you saying yes, you agree that exists in almost every
100%.
code base, and you're saying like, "Hey, but if we don't fall for the trap of rewriting it, can we safely avoid those landmines?" And my response to you is not likely.
Oh,
And the
really?
reason is and we'll use your two landing pages, your two login pages as an example, right? So in this case, like that VIP landing page, we've all forgotten about that one. It's still being used, but no one remembers that it's being used, and it's in some dashboard somewhere, but it's like blips once a week or something like that, so no one ever notices it because it's like its scale is so small, right? Um, and you're not going to rewrite everything, but you're refactoring. And the thing that you're refactoring is the auth service. And
Hmm.
while refactoring the auth service, somebody notices that there's this like refer header in
Hmm.
the HTML metadata or in the HTTP metadata. And people are like, "Why? Wait a second. Why are we plumbing this refer header all the way through like 6 layers of our microservices? Like,
Hmm.
we don't use that. We only have one. This is dumb. Why do? And so then in the refactor, we get rid of the refer, you know,
Yes.
HTTP metadata, and that's when the VIP page breaks, and and everyone's like, what? And worse, it's a low enough, rare enough use feature that the time delay between when we made the refactor to have the breaking change that we didn't know about and the time that we trip over the breaking change is enough time and enough releases went by between those two events that now we're like, what? We didn't change anything about that.
Yeah, I guess I disagree with you weekly. And
Okay.
what I mean by that is in the case of the refer header or whatever it was that's there, at least an engineer saw it and thought about it, and maybe they made the wrong decision, right? Versus the case of that's on the refactor side. On the rewrite side, you don't even know, you're oblivious. You didn't even know that header existed, so you didn't even know to put it back in. And I just feel like the problem of making the wrong decision because you didn't have all the information is, at least, like, if I think about a retrospective, it's something I can manage. We can say, oh, what could we do to avoid this in the future? Oh, well, when you come across a header that you don't know what it does, maybe let's go look at I don't know, edge load balancer logs or something and see if it's coming through there, to see if it's meaningful or something like that. I don't know. Whereas the case where it's like, well, we went about building a whole new landing page thing and nobody knew about this.
I
And
I just think that like yeah, I agree with
you,
you. Like it's a slightly easier to catch it, but it's not easy to catch it. It's not trivial.
no.
Because remember, here's the thing we have to remember. A stepwise refactoring is actually just a bunch of small rewrites.
Mhm.
So you're still rewriting it. And the thing you're rewriting has a bunch of requirements that may not be obvious to you.
Okay, I know why I'm having like a visceral reaction about this. Not a strong one, a weak one, like I said. Here's what I think it is. Let's say that you and I we're engineers with hubris, and we say,
What?
oh, we can go rewrite this landing page. It'll take us very little time, and it'll be so much better than the last one.
Mhm.
And we probably do a cursory review of what features and functionalities are in the landing page before we go about building our new one. And we likely don't go through the code, every bit of the code, and look at every little detail that's in there. We probably click through the landing pages a bunch. We might even not do that at all. We might even have the designer say, hey, we're going to build a new landing page, so just make us a new landing page, right? And we might not even look at the old stuff. Whereas with the code situation, I'm sorry, with the refactor situation, at least the code, the header, it's right there in front of your eyes. I'm not saying it's easy to make the right call, but at least you got a chance. Whereas the hubris of starting from scratch is you're actually putting yourself in a position of, unless you're super diligent about going and reviewing every line of the existing system, you're just setting yourself up to make the mistake.
Okay, well, so I agree with that. You're not going to get an argument with from me on that point. I agree with that point that you're making. I'm going to say one. I'm going to take one more swipe at this point that I'm trying to make is that ultimately when we refactor, the opacity of undocumented requirements, ancient, old, undocumented requirements, they are opaque to us. And we can look at the code to try to understand those requirements. But if we
Yes.
don't actually have the enumeration of the requirements, the code is cryptic and we
Hmm.
don't know
Hmm.
why the code was written that way.
100% agree. I can't tell you how many times in my career I have sat and looked at some code and I have said to myself, I can read this, I understand what this is doing, but I don't understand why.
Yeah.
Why
Why
did
was it written
why
this
did
way?
or why did someone put this here?
Yeah.
Why are we checking to see if the customer is in West Virginia? I don't get it.
Right.
And I find out, oh, well, it turns out there's a law in West Virginia that says blah 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 blah
You
blah. And
can't sell
7 years
llamas.
ago, the lawyers, yeah, 7 years ago, the lawyers said you can't sell llamas in West Virginia, right? Whatever. But and hopefully the person did it clearly and it makes sense, but often they don't.
That's
Okay, you mentioned the auth example.
mhm.
I've lived through that before.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
Let's see
All of
here.
us have.
Winter of 2022, matter of fact. We're replacing homegrown auth system, hooray, with auth zero, a reputable vendor. And, like all engineers who have hubris, we thought this will just take us 2 weeks. And we only had to roll that thing back about 7 times. In fact, I remember a document I got from one of our, I don't know if it's title, but he was like a principal type of engineer. And the title of the document, there was an app, let's just call it AppX. And he said, the title of the document was, How the F Does AppX Even Work? And you crack this thing open. We've been rolling this thing out and rolling it back with this auth thing because we've been missing use cases or whatever. And this is his exploration of how authentication works for this one application, this one admin tool that's on the side. And he's just like, I don't get it. I don't understand how
How would app
I'm
works
reading.
at all? It's like
How does authentication work for this system? Period. I'm like looking at this code. I'm looking at like this
right.
is where it's looking up its users. This is this stuff, blah, blah, blah. Well, it turns out, I mean, this is a gem of some bad design. Uh, this was like a separate application, and instead of like either using something to like authenticate against like the main system or making its own little authentication thing, what it did is, well, it kind of made its own little authentication thing, but then there was, I'm not making this up, I swear to God, I don't know if I should say this out loud, actually. It's so bad, but I didn't do it, I just found it. There was an ETL job that copied the usernames and passwords from one database to another. And so this guy is like, I don't get it. How does this work? Like I changed like I don't. He didn't know about the ETL job, right? And
How
and
frequently is this ETL job running? Like on the
probably
minute?
I don't know. No, this was like an admin tool, so it probably only ran like once a night or something like that.
Okay.
But the point was like we was trying to make this thing work with this third party thing off zero, and like the way we thought it should work just wasn't working.
Totally.
And it turns out whatever, you get the story. So that was
Boom. So
that
there you
was a
go.
fun
That's you.
one.
You just proved my point. That was a refactor. That was a refactor that had some weird product debt in it that you later
Oh, no, no,
like.
no. That was that I do
That
not
was
put
pure
that one
tech
on
debt.
product. I
Okay,
do
fine.
not. In fact, I don't even know if we can call that tech debt. I mean, we can call it tech debt, but it has to have a special name of tech debt. There's there's a type of tech debt.
Munchausen by proxy tech debt.
I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Oh,
Is that
that's
is
a
that the
mental
thing?
disorder where you like make your child sick so that you somehow feel better as the savior or something.
Here's what I'm getting at. There's tech debt that comes from we've introduced it of years of adding product complexity. There's tech, essentially the needs of the business have changed, but the product hasn't evolved enough. There's tech debt, which is systems are outdated. We're using old versions of stuff, things like that. And there's probably other types of tech debt. I'm sure there's a million of them, but here's a special one, and I think it deserves a better name than tech debt. And maybe we can come up with that name. Well, there's tech debt when somebody makes a poor design decision, and in retrospect, you look back and you say, that's not very flexible or scalable. We could have done that better. And then there's tech debt, and this deserves a special name. When somebody makes a design decision that is so bad, like I'm going to set up I don't have the time to actually figure out how to share the authentication system. So I'm going to set up an ETL job to copy usernames and passwords. Such a egregiously,
Design.
the word delinquent is coming to my mind, but it's worse than delinquent, negligent, negligent
Tech.
technical design.
Yeah.
What is the word for that kind of tech
Negligent
debt?
tech debt. I don't know.
We need a better word, because sometimes we mix those up together, and it's unfair when the product has just changed and the system is rigid because the requirements have changed. It's unfair to put that in the same bucket as someone made such a terrible decision here. I feel
Okay,
like we
well,
have to come up with new names.
fair enough. I'm going to pivot us back to this question of product debt for a second.
Do
And
it.
I want to pivot to this question that you basically are saying is like, hey, rewriting the system is never the right answer because you'll definitely like get bit by this product debt.
I'm not going to say never the right answer. It's just higher risk.
Higher risk. Okay. Let's look at the other side of that coin.
Okay.
Okay. The other side of the let's rewrite it coin. One of the things that you can do, what you certainly would need to do if you're going to rewrite it, is you would need to say, what do we want this thing to do? What are the requirements of the rewritten thing?
Hmm.
That's an opportunity to eliminate product features you no longer need.
Yes. Let me tell you my two just instinct, like very quick, the things that came right to my mind
Your
in
blink
response to
reaction to
that.
that.
My blink reactions. The first was, yeah, but will the requirement writers remember important requirements that are hidden, like the VIP landing page? The other thing that came to my mind is a category of existing feature or requirement that is on the bubble. Like, let's just use this via. I'll actually give you a real one from TaskRabbit. We had one of those things. A lot of websites have them. Refer a friend and get a credit or something like that, right?
Yeah, totally.
And recently, it needed some update. Okay, I don't know why. There's a bug or something. Who knows? And there wasn't a bug, but there was some update. And someone asked a product manager, "Hey, do we need this thing? Like, it's sitting here in a corner. Does anybody really use this?" And that person went around and spent some time, and it probably took a month of time, not full time, but like the whole duration of like, well, I'll go check and I got to ask all these people, and yes, it gets used, but let's do some analysis to see if it gets used, whether it's worth it to fix it. And actually, in something very positive that came back, and the answer was, yeah, we're going to get rid of this. We don't think it's worth updating. We can just scrap it. That took time, but a lot of those. So not only do all those take time, lots of times they don't come back clear. They're fuzzy. It's like, well, I mean, a fair amount of customers use this every month and might not be worth rewriting it, but it'd be really unfortunate if those customers, lost out on that whatever capability that they had. And
Yeah.
so then that just isn't that's an expensive process of going through all that rationalization. So those are the two things that came to mind.
Yeah, I think those are both valid things, and this is where you kind of got to challenge the question. This is, by the way, this is the reason that like um uh upstarts have an advantage over incumbents.
True.
They're not saddled by that. So, you know, one one strategy that if you have the environment and the wherewithal to do this, one strategy is be your own disruptor.
Yeah, I've thought of that a lot, and it's very alluring. But for these reasons we've talked about, it's also,
Risky.
yeah, I mean, actually, the words that were coming to my mind were intimidating and scary. Um, especially if you have I mean, it's fundamentally the innovator's dilemma, which is, hey, we've got a good thing going and we want it to go better. That's why we want to improve the platform. And this actually could potentially make it go a lot worse.
Isn't that, didn't Kevin Goldsmith give us that one of those stories from his time at Spotify where basically they did this big
Yes.
launch and it was like they didn't follow their normal practices of kind of testing small and stuff like that, and they
Yes.
basically did this big launch, and the thing that was supposed to increase usage and traffic actually like tanked usage and traffic, and they were just like, wow.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so as an engineering leader, I mean, I guess I'll just be honest. I guess I don't have the cojones to recommend that because I'm afraid of cratering the business.
And I would say this is never a call that would be made just by an engineering team. You've got to have the product team, the business team has got to be like, yes, this is something that we recognize, understand, and agree, you know? And there's plenty of times I've worked with product teams where the product team themselves identified the product debt. They were just like, and it could be a little bit of like, uh, you know, throwing the old product team under the bus, when a new regime has come in or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. And so it's like, we're the new product team and we're gonna like we don't care about the features from the old product team, right?
Yeah, I've found myself in this situation more than once where the business side of the house really wants me to start over from scratch. And I've been the one who said, no, I don't, to use your language of product debt, which I didn't quite have before. I was like, no, you guys don't understand the product debt. Like it's, that's why, I would call it a fool's errand. And I think it's because haven't had the words before. It's like, you're not really thinking through the level of the volume of requirements that are in here and the cost
To
of
rebuild all of
thinking
them.
of either rebuilding them or rationalizing them. It sounds really easy to sit in the conference room and say, we're going to start from scratch and in a year we're going to rebuild the whole thing.
Yeah.
But this thing has gotten here organically over many, many years of experimentation and evolution um and some of it's good and some of it's bad, but it's true. It is truly the innovator's dilemma.
Well, there you go. So
There you go.
you and I were talking about rebuild versus refactor,
Yeah.
and I threw product debt at you. And now, after 30 minutes of talking about this, do you feel empowered to use the term product debt in an upcoming conversation?
I absolutely do, because we're having some conversations at our company about investing more in improving our platform. And we have things on the list of things where we might invest is like modernize the front end framework to Next.js and improve. We have two mobile apps, but they're different architectures, and different. Everything in them is different, and the product features are different too. But like, hey, let's consolidate those. So maybe there's still two apps, but at least let's get some more sharing going on in there, right? We're talking about decomposing our backend monolith into some pieces, and this gives me some language to say, hey, you know what we need to put on that list? Let's see if there's any product debt we can get rid of.
Yeah, I love it.
All
That's
right.
great. Great way to use
Well,
that term. I love
thank you. This has been a fun conversation today.
it. Awesome. Good chatting with you, Scott.
All right, everybody, if you're listening, don't forget to smash that subscribe button, to
Rate
leave
and
us a
review.
5-star review,
Yeah.
and to tell all your friends about it. We have just crossed the 1 million listener mark. And the only thing between us and being the biggest podcast in the world is Joe Rogan. And the only thing that's going to get us there is more of your support. So thank you
This,
very much.
these facts may or may not be fake news.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. This episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast was edited by Saffron Hefta-Gaub. Our theme song was AI generated by Brad. Please follow us on all the social media platforms at How Many CTOs Pod. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, TikTok, and Patreon, or at our website at howmanyctospod.com. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. Thanks for listening.